Hi, I'm Tony Russo, and this is Funeral Service Insider from Kates-Boylston. Each episode features conversations about emerging trends and news that affect the death care industry. We talk to people who understand the delicate balance of change in a profession and vocation steeped in tradition. This week, we're speaking with Madeline Lyles, who, with her business partner Dana Taylor, runs Afterlife Mortuary Services in Memphis, Tennessee. The two came up together working as trained embalmers, and although they went to different schools together, they came back together to open this business, but that is just the beginning of it. What was really exciting about Madeline and Dana, and what brought them to my attention, was they also have a day camp in the summertime for teenagers interested in funeral service. The pair will have up to 12 or 14 kids out, and they'll go through a couple of weeks of being a funeral director, everything from taking the night calls to doing the embalming, or to witnessing the embalming anyway, and learning the other small things, small relational things that you need to know to become a funeral director. It's a really interesting project, and she is such an entertaining storyteller. I think you're going to love this episode. One of the things that I'll mention at the end of the episode, but I also want to mention it now, is American Funeral Director is now taking submissions for its ones to watch. And these are up-and-coming young funeral directors, new graduates, or new funeral directors who look like they have a great career ahead of them. And I was talking to Madeline about one of her students who has gone on to mortuary school and who I also profiled in Funeral Service Insider. It occurred to me that you guys should all know about this, because you don't have to be a school to recommend someone. But if you know of a mortuary school student or a young funeral director who needs or who deserves some recognition, please check out the show notes and you will find a link for submitting your nomination. And as always, please make sure to stay on after the closing credits for the postmortem. This week, I'll be talking about the In Case You Missed It column. But now, here is Madeline Lyles. So sometime last year, I saw an article in the paper about a camp for people who wanted, for young children, for teenagers who wanted to get into funeral service. And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. So I reached out to you and I asked you how you started, and we're going to talk all about that. But first of all, how did you get into funeral service, and what was your path between getting in and then to start your own business?
Yeah. So being a mortician has been my passion since I was 13 years old. I didn't know anything about funeral services, going in. And so at 13, I started doing research about the profession. And I basically just held on to that desire of being a mortician. And so once I graduated from high school, I immediately went to college for mortuary science and just continued on, in the steps of my career. And here I am today, to make the story shorter. We celebrated 5 years of having our own funeral home here in Memphis, Tennessee.
That's fantastic. One of the things that I remember is that you spent a lot of time just having to hustle because you had trouble finding work, which is something that seems to be common among women entering funeral service, or at least used to be.
Yeah, it was a challenge to get in. I dealt with a lot of opposition, a lot of unfavorable requests for employment and things of that nature. And so I actually started working at our city morgue in order to, get into the profession more so, or just to get more well-rounded as far as anatomy goes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I worked in the city morgue performing autopsies and collecting evidence for homicide investigators for 5.5 years. That was really enjoyable. And I loved everything about it. And like I said, it did help me to better understand the body and to just get that inside hands-on experience and training with decedents to be a better embalmer. And so after that 5.5 years at the morgue, I was still wanting, to be a mortician and wanting to be in funeral services. And so I resigned, and that's when I started working in funeral homes. And so shortly after that, I started working as a trade embalmer. And so that's when the hustling really started.
Did you say you were working in 3 states because you live close enough where that's something that
Right.
you could do?
Right. We're tri-state. And so during that time when I first started trade embalming, I was working between 2 states, which is Tennessee and Arkansas. And I was working for 12 funeral homes between the 2 states. And so that was running me crazy. I was working like 18-hour days, if that even exists. But I would just like get up at 7:30 and go to bed like 2 days later at like 9. I don't even know. It was divine. Like I can't even explain it as human strength or whatever, but I did that for a while and then I decided, hey, I need to get a facility here in Memphis and something centralized, something that everyone can reach who I was working for so that I could
Mm.
provide those services in that location. And so that's how we ended up, Dana and I, where we are now with the funeral home. It was initially going to be just a location for an embalming service when I was working as an individual. And so that didn't pan out. And around the end of 2016, God told me to go get Dana. And I mean, just like we sitting here talking, he said, go get Dana.
Now, it's important to say that we only have one person on at a time, but if I did have two persons on at a time, Dana would be the other person. Can you introduce Dana and tell her story?
Yeah. Yeah, so Dana Taylor, that's my business partner. She's originally from Dallas, Texas. And Dana has been here now about 16, 17 years. She and I met actually in 2009. So we didn't even know each other growing up or anything. We didn't meet until 2009, where she ended up coming to the morgue for a position there. And she was there long enough for us to get really cool. And she moved on and went to a local funeral home here. And so, like I said, I was still there at the morgue for those 5.5 years. And it was so crazy because once I did resign, I ended up working at the funeral home where she was. She's licensed also in Mississippi and Tennessee. And I'm licensed in Mississippi, Tennessee, and Arkansas. And so, like I said, around the end of 2016, God told me to go get Dana. We had just kind of been we were aware of each other. We were cool. We worked in the same profession, but we never really were just working in close together like that once I left that funeral home where she was. When I was trading bumming, I was just in and out of places. And so in 16, when it got Dana and we went over the business plan for, just embalming and everything. And we decided, hey, since we're doing this much with the body and with preparations and everything, let's just go ahead and have a full service funeral home and provide the families with the services we know they deserve, because we had witnessed a lot. When you work in funeral homes, you see how families sometimes are taken advantage of. You see how they're mistreated. And so we wanted to bridge the gap between families and funeral homes and redevelop that trust between families and funeral homes. So that's why we went on and started our funeral home in October of 2018.
And now what's interesting about this, or what I wish I could have brought out more in the story that I wrote, is that you guys really kind of bootstrapped it. Like, you're not second generation funeral homes.
Right.
You were like, okay, we're going to start a funeral home, and it was just really kind of hand to mouthing it that first
Absolutely.
couple of
yeah.
years.
Oh yeah. And we not even aware of the fact that we were making history. We ended up on the front page of our local newspaper here for the city of Memphis as the first Black women to establish, own, and operate a funeral home in the state of Tennessee, in the city of Memphis. And so that was really cool. But we definitely just started from the bottom. We're first generation. We don't have any family members who had establishments or anything that we could inherit or anything like that. So we started from the bottom and we're working our way up so that we can pass the baton, as time goes on.
Very, very cool. And one of the I guess more ill-advised things you decided to do when you first opened a new business was to start this camp. So can you talk to me about how you started to talk about the camp and then how you decided to jump in?
So the summer camp, we call it the Funeral Services Education Camp. And it was actually something that I created back in 2014 when I was bored. Basically, I was working at a funeral home and I was managing a funeral home, and it was really slow. So we were trying to think of ways to get people to come into the facility and see it and invite people in so they could be aware that we were there. And so it didn't pan out. I only had one person to sign up. But once Dana and I started our business, I told her, hey, let's do the summer camp. because that would be a great initiative and a great way for us to give back and, and bring others in who are interested, because we've met so many people who have been inspired by a story and who once were on a path to be in funeral services, or, they had it as a thought or a desire themselves, and their families talked them out of it. And so we decided to open up the camp for youth and young adults 13 to 18 years of age. It's something positive for them to be engaged in during the summer. We do a lot of initiatives here in our city, and we attend a lot of college and career fairs. And so you realize that a lot of students were interested in funeral services and forensics and things like that. And so we figured it would be great to give them that opportunity. It was something that we didn't have growing up, so we decided to allow the 13 to 18-year-olds to come in. They get hands-on, behind-the-scene experience and training. They meet professionals that work in what we call death care, anything concerning the care of decedents, regardless to the profession. And so they're able to meet those individuals and work closely with them and just learn about those different professions that are available for them.
So, and you did this your first year that you were open, or your second year that it was early?
Yeah, so we did it we did it the second year, the second summer, 2019. Well, yeah, the second year basically, because we opened in October, so that was the year. But yeah, 2019, the summer of 2019 was when we first launched it at our facility, and we had about 12. We had 12 attendees the first go round, and that's pretty much what we average now, anywhere from 9 to 12 individuals. We kind of keep it small because it's just Dana and I. And then, in the midst of the summer camp going on, we still have business going on. We try to keep it where we can control everything at once. Or if one of us needs to step out to go on a funeral or make a removal or, meet with a family, we're still able to do that and attend to the children very well also.
When you decided to start putting it together, like what were your steps? What did you want it to have? What did you want it to not have? And, what did you want the students to get out of it, piece by piece?
Well, we wanted it to have complete experience. We wanted it to be fun and educational. We didn't want any restrictions, basically, to anything that we were doing. And it was really easy for us to put together because we've worked with most of these professionals that we introduced those children to. Like I said, working as a trade embalmer, very well acquainted with multiple morticians throughout our city and everything. And then we work with ministers, and we worked at the morgue. So we had that connection with the medical examiners and for, those who work in forensics and homicide investigation. We're acquainted with those who work in military funeral services and casket sales, just the professionals that we've become acquainted with over the years of our employment or, our tenure working as morticians. We've established really great relationships with people. And so we introduced the idea to them, and they were ecstatic about it, and so it was really a blessing that everyone was on board and wanted to educate these youth and young adults as well. And so even with the crematorium, these are people that we work with closely on a regular basis. And so they were all about, helping us help those children.
So tell me about your first year. What was the first year like? What were some of the components of it? What did you put together for the? And I'm sorry, this is a question I forgot to ask last time, and I don't want to. And this is just during the day. This isn't an overnight thing. But you did have kids come from out of
state. Now our furthest attendee came from Macon, Georgia. So what they did, her and her parents came and they booked a room so that they could be here for the week, so she could be there every day of the camp. But yeah, we have attendees from, everywhere, and we were really amazed by that the word spread so far, and realized it has spread so far to different states like that. But in that first camp, they witnessed live cremations, and they were able to speak with the medical examiners, employees, and they were able to get hands-on and behind-the-scenes experience with the forensic aspects of autopsies and some of the homicide investigation things as well. When the homicide investigators came in, they met them also. We always give them a tour of one of our historical cemeteries here in the city where the yellow fever victims were buried, as well as a lot of other dignitaries and just prominent people in our city, and some who moved to the city like throughout history to be buried here. They also were able to attend our They visited our college, Northwest Mississippi Community College, where we graduated from for funeral services. They met those professionals or those instructors and the administrators of the program, and got, more details of what it would be to get into the program and what grades they need to maintain and, what path they would need to take throughout high school and everything. We also went over restorative art with them. We, did some hands-on with molding and wax and restorative art and things like that. And then we had our casket salesman to come in, and he went over some merchandising and sales and things like that with them as well. So, and then we had Monica, the first camp, we had Monica Torres. I don't know if you're familiar with her. Yeah,
I did a story on her too, yes.
She came in and she showed them how to transplant hair and do different things with restorative work as well.
That's absolutely fantastic. And these kids all had permission. Yeah. That was one of the part of it, right? You wanted it to be legitimate, so they all had to have permission to be around.
Yeah, we have proper paperwork in place for all of that to be properly and legally done. So yeah, the families of decedents and everything, as well as from the parents of those attendees.
Oh, that didn't even occur to me. So the families knew that there were going to be students present.
Yeah, because everyone is, everyone wants to educate and educate the youth and the young adults and make sure they're on the right path. And so everyone was just really ecstatic about it. So we've always gotten great feedback and assistance with it.
Hi. I want to take a second to talk to you about the upcoming Kates-Boylston Funeral Service Business Plan Conference set for June 4th and 5th at the Crowne Plaza Hotel in Warwick, Rhode Island. This has always been one of our more popular conferences because we bring together experts from all over the industry to talk about up-to-the-minute solutions and approaches to getting your funeral business on the track that you want it. One of the best things about these in-person conferences is you get to speak with the experts face-to-face and get one-time information that won't be available anyplace else. For instance, there's an opening night cocktail party where we always have the opportunity to catch up with colleagues, to make new connections, and to engage in meaningful conversations with the speakers as well as with funeral directors from all over the country. In addition to the cocktail party, your registration includes 2 days' worth of sessions and breakfast and lunch both days. It also includes 1-year subscriptions to American Funeral Director and American Cemetery and Cremation, which is a $100 value in itself. This is one conference you don't want to miss. Early bird registration is open now, and the price is $199 until April 25th. Event sponsors this year are Implant Recycling, Procoa, and Homesteaders Life Company. Visit events.kates-boylston.com today to register, or, as always, you can find the link in the show notes. Make connections, ignite ideas, and be inspired. Register now and be part of the future of funeral service. See you in Warwick. Did you have any trouble with students that were maybe uncomfortable during the autopsies? Did people find out they didn't want to be funeral directors anymore in the autopsy room? I'm
thinking about one of our camp attendees. He was so funny, and so we were in the prep room or whatever, and they got to see a decomp. So he came back. I was in the front office, and he came up front and was like, "Miss Mel, I think I would be really good in real estate too." And I'm like, "What's going on?" He's like, "That odor." He's like, "I just can't take it. I don't think I can take it." So his thing was he wants to be a funeral director. And I told him, hey, when you work in the funeral home, you're going to cross paths with the decedent at some point. Now, you might not, it won't be as invasive as a funeral director as it would be as an embalmer. I said, but you can still, explore the funeral directing portion of it if that's what you want to do. You don't have to ever really smell odors if you're just a funeral director. But that was so funny because he came out and he was like, "Look, I think I'd be really good in real estate." Don't throw the funeral home away as a whole. You can still work up front and not have to deal with the prep room. So that was so funny.
Right. And that is something, though. It really, there are so many kids, I think, that don't know what they're getting into until it's too late. So this is But it
Yeah,
must also
and
happen,
see
I guess, in
the
mortuary
benefit of it
school.
is that they're getting that experience up front before they even finish middle school for some and high school for others. But it's gonna let them know, hey, this you see a funeral service, and that's what mostly strikes people's attentions is that everyone makes it look so easy and so well put together at the funeral. But it's way more behind the scenes that takes place before you get to that part of celebrating a person's life. And so giving them that opportunity to come in and hear what they'll have to do and see what they have to deal with, it does give them that opportunity to decide, hey, can I deal with this or do I really need to, look into something else I might want to do in life? Yeah, like real estate.
Like real estate. Then that first year, how did you get the word out? How did you get enough people to come? And did you get any
Yeah,
early media
definitely.
coverage
So
because of
we
this idea?
started out just promoting it online. That's something that I always tell people is that social media can be really positive and beneficial to you and your business if you use it properly. And so we promoted it on social media and some kind of way, like I said, it hit people's pages who were in other states. And then it hit different types of pages as well. And so the news media, the news stations caught wind of it. And we ended up having billboards around the city about it. And it was just like, wow, this is outstanding, And so they wanted us on the news. They came by the funeral home and interviewed us. And more articles began to go out in papers. And it was all over the news. Like it was sweeps weeks or something for the news stations. And so everyone was trying to get the story. And it was kind of like, yeah, your children are going to summer camp, but what about summer camp for the dead? Or like it was something like, what about summer camp for funeral services? So they had all their little pitches that they put together for their coverage, and that got more exposure to it as well. And we actually had way more people trying to register their students than we could take. And so we had to, have a cutoff date, and we just merged them over to the next summer. And so we still have people who are contacting us now, like even as early as like 2 months ago. And they're like, hey, you all still doing the summer camp? When does registration open? How can I get my child in? How can I get in? And so it's like, it's a really attractive event for them to have.
So I'm sorry. So do you have adults who
the
would like to do
parents
this?
would love to. And so we're working on some things. We're always brainstorming and putting things together. And I thank God that He gives us these great visions to share with others and to put out to help others. And so we, like I said, we do have a lot of adults who have told us they wanted to be in funeral services at some point in life, and their husbands talked them out of it, or their families talked them out of it, or they just didn't know what all it entailed. So they were kind of leery about it. So we're putting some things together for adults as well, because we see that they would love to be in on some things as well.
And spoilers, but I love this story, and I'm hoping to do a story on her when she finally graduates. You had your first student that was in all, and she.
Yeah,
I'm
so
sorry.
Madison
Tell me about
in
Madison.
camp since she was 13. She's from Olive Branch, Mississippi, and she's been with us all the way up until her point of college. And so now she's in her first year, and she's actually now working with us. We're proctors for the school as well. And so she's now completing her cases for her embalming course, where she has to actually assist us in funeral services and in the prep room with embalming. So she's been with us. We've like literally watched her grow up, go to prom. And so it's really a proud moment to see that these children really are serious about it, and they have been guided through this process, and we're going to carry them all the way till they get to walk the stage their last time through mortuary, and get their degree. So we're definitely proud of her because she's sticking with it, and she's doing really good in school.
Yeah, and it's also a good way to kind of affect the attitude of the next generation. Like you can say, this is how we think funeral directors should be, and then you can make that happen by
and so, of
training
course, we teach them the old methods and what we've learned not to do and what we've learned to do. And so they're very well rounded in funeral services as a whole. We've had some to have family members pass, and they've helped put together the arrangements. They've walked their parents through funeral arrangements before they got to us. And that was really impressive because they're really soaking it in, and they're really serious about it. And so we have another camp attendee. He has his own floral company now. Yeah, and he's doing really great. He actually moved to California, and he's starting his thing there. And he's been here visiting a few times. He still comes back and helps out with some of the local florists here in Memphis as well. And then we have 2 other young ladies who are getting ready to go into college. They'll be going in for the spring semester for funeral services as well.
The other thing that I was really fascinated about is one of the realisms that you introduced the students to in the camp
Yeah.
is the
The death
overnight phone
calls.
calls. Can you talk about that?
And that's one part that I just really love, because sometimes I'm up to 2 or 3 in the morning. And so the parents are aware of it as well. And they thought it was so funny because they got to see their kids struggle over the phone. Got to see them try to stay up late. They like trying to sit up and wait on the call. And the next day they like, hey, you didn't call me last night. And I'm like, well, yeah, you can't schedule death. Like, that's how it works. So I just randomly call them at 2 or 3 in the morning, 12 o'clock at night. And they're, taking down the information to see who is really attentive to what I'm saying. Sometimes I'm kind of like irate and I'm, acting as if someone really died. Sometimes I'm the hospice nurse, or I'm just the family member who don't really know which way to go with it and asking questions and stuff. So it's really a great experience for them to get those death calls so they can see, hey, it's not 9 to 5, it's 24/7. Like, it's around the clock all day, every day. And so the parents were really tickled. Like I said, they would come in the next day, or, when they're dropping them off, and they're like, look, the phone was in my room last night and I told them to get the phone and they fell asleep. So it's really cool to put them through the whole thing to get the real, the real effects and the real experience of it all.
And if another funeral director or a couple funeral directors wanted to run a camp like this in their area, what would you advise them? What are the things that you learned to like not to do and to do? Because I guess everyone has similar connections if you're in the business, especially if you're in the business, 15, 20 years. So what are some of the pitfalls and what are some of the perks?
I would say just make sure you have things in place legally. Make sure you learn who these camp attendees are. And that's something that we included in our paperwork. We asked a lot of questions as far as health and medical things go. A lot of children have learning disabilities, or they have different triggers. And so you want to make sure that they don't have any, issues with what they're going to see or what they could be exposed to. So you want to make sure that you just communicate everything very well in speaking with those parents and those attendees, as well as in your paperwork. And I would say just make plans to be really busy during the time of your camp. Like I said, you still have business going on. And so families are still calling. We still have death calls coming in throughout the day, and we have to make removals sometimes. And we have burials, we have graveside services and funerals that we're still attending. So you and the staff, I'm sure, with other funeral homes, they have more staff than Dana and I, the 2 of us, with occasional help on services. So, just make sure you have your people in place so that you're able to attend to those attendees completely and always be with them and be ready to answer every question under the moon. And just have fun with it. Like, share them, share your life with them, share that portion and get them engaged as much as possible.
And now, you already have that. My next question was going to be, but you already asked it. You already have people kind of waiting to come this summer. What have you added over the last couple of years? And is there anything that you've taken away? How has it changed from the first one to what you're going to do next year?
We've added some additional activities, and they don't like to be disclosed. So I just say we've added some other professions to it. Yeah, they prefer not to be disclosed, but yeah, we've added things to it. More professions. I'll say it that way. We've added more professions that are in conjunction with funeral services to the program. And we're thinking about looking into the whole lodging thing, because there are a lot of people coming in from out of town or wanting to. And so we kind of want to, put something together with a hotel, or have some kind of package deal they could do or something, or have a code or something they can give to the hotels and get discounts for staying there, during that time of the camp. So we're just looking at things like that to improve things for those out of state attendees.
Very cool. And we are kind of coming up against the end of it. And so the last question, that usually it's the next to last question I always like to ask, is there something I should have asked that I didn't? Is there something that you thought you'd get the opportunity to say, but I didn't provide it?
And it's important to know that you're helping these individuals to develop relationships that they're going to need in the future, and again, like I said, it was a struggle for me to get a job in funeral services once I graduated. And it's even a struggle for students to find a funeral home where they can complete their cases. And so just introducing them to these individuals who are already working in these professions, whether it be funeral services, for future reference for them to have, or in other professions, they're aware of these individuals, and letters of recommendations can take place or be composed now because they remember them, and we have a lot of repeat attendees, of course, and so they see them every summer, so it's establishing relationships. And I think that's important for you to realize is that you're actually establishing relationships for these young people to have with these professionals. So you're kind of getting them in the door already, which is something that I can say surely none of us had coming up in funeral services if we didn't have if it wasn't a family-owned business. And so for those who don't have family in funeral services, is definitely a benefit in getting them acquainted with these individuals that they'll need to know in the future.
And I want to tell you and also do a little tiny commercial because I can't believe it just occurred to me. We have the American Funeral Director magazine has an award that, not an award, a special issue we do called Ones to Watch, where people who work with either apprentices or students in them as, as potential funeral directors of the future. Yeah. So I think a lot of people who are in education will be listening to this. And of course, I will let you know that keep an eye out for that issue. I'll actually put the link in the show notes to where you'll find out all about the ones to watch, because I think that you have all sorts of ones to watch that you see every summer. And it would be good for them to know that they could, kind of let a teacher know that, hey,
absolutely.
You want to nominate
Absolutely.
these.
And that's very encouraging. So anything to keep them going, because it can be really trying. And I always tell everyone school is harder than the actual practice itself. And it is, so just anything to help them stay motivated and to continue to look forward to that future of being a licensed professional. You want to do that for them. So I think that's great.
Excellent. And that's all I have for you. So thank you so much for sharing all this with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Funeral Service Insider is a Kates-Boylston production. It was written and edited by me, Tony Russo. I've said it before, and I will continue to say it. Please subscribe or follow wherever you're listening now. We are on Apple. We are on Spotify. We are on Amazon. If you can download a podcast on it, you can download our podcast on it, and we really wish you would. If you follow us, you won't have to check to see when we have a new episode. The episodes will just populate on your phone or on your computer or on your tablet or on your watch automatically. As always, please check the show notes for links to all of the things that we talked about in the show. I'll have a link to the story, a profile story I did with Madeline and Dana in Funeral Service Insider and also on American Funeral Director. So if you subscribe to either of those publications, you can read this story for free now. And it's a story worth reading. I think they're good people. It's easy to write a story about good people. I don't have to brag about what a great writer I am when people say really interesting things and I just write them down. But as I mentioned, we are taking submissions for our ones to watch. This is for young funeral directors to be recognized for their likelihood of doing great things in this great industry. So check that out. Think of someone, if you can think of someone that you believe is deserving, please let us know about it. It's something that we love to do every year. And now, the postmortem. Usually in this part, I'll talk about one of the stories that I wrote about in Funeral Service Insider, or an interesting story or feature that I saw in American Funeral Director or in American Cemetery and Cremation. But I want to invite you to start following along a little bit more closely, or at all, the In Case You Missed It column. So every day, I scour the internet for stories about funeral homes, about crematories, about legislation, looking for stories that I can write in FSI. And there are always way many more stories than I'll ever get a chance to write. Plus, some of them are kind of niche or I don't think I can find anything more interesting to say than was already said in the paper. So what I do is I kind of summarize those into a paragraph or two, sometimes 3, but rarely more than that. And I put them out as something we call In Case You Missed It. Now, the reason I'm telling you about that is because In Case You Missed It are free on the website. If you go to Kates-Boylston.com, again, link in the show notes, you can click on Funeral Service Insider, and then you can click on In Case You Missed It. Or if you're interested, you can click on Mergers and Acquisitions. Both of those will bring you to a page where we have done some original reporting on small issues, just briefs. That's what we call them, news briefs. They're local funeral home news briefs. I think you'll get a huge kick out of them. I would get a huge kick out of it if you went and saw them. So that's what I'm going to recommend you do. And again, I will have a link to both Funeral Service Insiders, In Case You Missed It, and its Mergers and Acquisitions pages right here in the show notes. You can click on them and you can just visit back and forth whenever you like. If you're old school like me and have an RSS feed reader, you can actually get the RSS feed, and that way you'll get that little ping on your browser every time I upload a new story, which is, I try to do it every day. Sometimes I do it 4 days a week. But most anytime I can find a story, I try to share it if it's not a story I'm going to report on. So just so you know, just so you can connect with other funeral professionals. And that will do it for this week. And we'll speak with you again soon on Funeral Service Insider, the podcast.